Talk by Gamma, keeping you connected and protected.
Welcome to DAS Talk, the essential podcast on distributed antenna systems and in-building communication. Hosted by Peter, VP of Gamma, and Philip Nicholas. This Gamma electronic series focuses on emergency response and safety. Join us as we navigate the challenges of building effective communication systems for North America's first responders. We delve into the advancements in emergency responder radio systems and the transformative impact on new technologies. Tune in for insightful discussions aimed at increasing knowledge and awareness in the DAS field. Whether you're a professional or an enthusiast, DAS Talk is your gateway to understanding the nexus of technology, safety, and communication.
I'm super excited about today's show and our guest today. We have Lori Alhadeff with us, and she's coming to us from Florida. She's got a very, very interesting story. And so today in the past, we've had guests come on the show, and we've talked a lot about the technical side of distributed antenna systems, public safety in particular. We've talked a lot about, the nitty-gritty as to designing the systems. We've talked about, how to install the systems. We've talked about integrators who put them in. And we've also talked with parties having jurisdiction who are the regional enforcers, I guess you could say, of the laws. Now, today we have a guest, and she's here to share her story with us. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the why. In other words, we do a lot of work on the back end to try to persuade AHJs to enforce the right way, to get up to code, and to learn about the NFPA codes that are required on a national level and on a state level so that they can essentially make our schools safe, make our buildings safe, make our hospitals safe across the board. Now, we're honored to have with us an amazing guest who's done a lot of work in this area. Lori, thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And so, Lori, I was hoping that you could give us a little bit of information about you and what you're doing and why I have you here on the show today, maybe. First, let's start off with a little bit of information about you would be great.
Absolutely. So my name is Lori Alhadeff, and I am the president of a nonprofit organization, Make Our Schools Safe, that was started after the tragedy at Marjory, Stoneman Douglas High School. On February 14, 2018, 6 years ago, there was a shooter that walked onto campus at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. My daughter, Alyssa, who was only 14 years old, she was amazing. She was a soccer player, all-American girl, such zest for life. Alyssa loved shopping, loved going to the beach, and Alyssa was in the first classroom, room 1216. This shooter shot into Alyssa's classroom, shot at Alyssa and others. Alex was killed in that classroom, and Elena was also killed in room 1216. The shooter shot the first time, and Alyssa was shot, but she was still alive. She ran. She tried to hide behind the teacher's desk, and the shooter went down the hallway. But for some reason, he came back to room 1216. And Alyssa, unfortunately, was in the direct line of fire from the door, and she was shot a total of 8 times and was murdered that day, along with 16 others at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. My husband and I, after the tragedy, we turned our pain and grief into action, started Make Our Schools Safe, a nonprofit organization. And then also I knew that in order for me to have a seat at the table, that I ran for the school board, the Broward County School Board. I've been on the school board for the last 6 years, and I've been the chair of the school board for the last 2 years. So I knew in order for me to make a direct impact and change, I needed to have a seat at the table and to be able to focus on school safety in Broward County, but with my nonprofit organization, to be able to focus on school safety around the country.
First of all, I'm just unbelievably sorry for your loss, and I can't imagine. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and they mean the world to us. They're unbelievably precious. They're why we wake up in the morning, why we work so hard, and I'm truly sorry about that.
Yeah.
As far as being, I love the part of your story where you come from a tragedy initially, and then you're like, let's go see what we can do to help fix this. What can we do to make our kids a little bit safer? You know, because that's why, part of why we're here. So you went and you took action. And some people wouldn't do that. And I think that's very admirable. Some people, because you know what, getting out there and sharing your message and talking to people and saying, this happened to me and my family. And now you're turning around and every time you share it, it's got to be a piece of you that's shared in that story, So I can't tell you, how much I admire that. And I'm impressed with that. And being on a school board probably isn't easy either, because I've been on a board in the past, and you're dealing with a lot of personalities and a lot of disagreements. So that's had to have been kind of a little bit of a challenge right there.
Yeah, we're the sixth largest school district in the country. We have
Oh,
nine school board members, and it's very interesting. But we have to try to work collaboratively to accomplish things and to be able, for the best interest of our students and their education, to make a difference.
so I'm just curious, what have you been able to do on the school board that has helped the situation at the schools and make them safe and stuff like that?
So here in Florida, the legislation has passed 6 robust school safety bills for the last 6 years, which has been incredible. Behavioral threat assessment, implementation, and more mental health for our students in our schools. And then just recently on our school board, we passed a motion to put weapon detection systems in all of our high schools that we're rolling out this summer. And for the start of next school year, all of our high schools will have our students going through this weapons detection to, hopefully prevent a gun or a weapon from getting into our schools. It's all about creating those layers of safety protection. And we've also passed Alyssas Law, named after my daughter Alyssa, in New Jersey, New York, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Utah, and Oregon. Almost in Oregon, there's funding there. I think did I miss a state? New Jersey,
Texas,
New
you
York,
did Texas as
Florida,
well.
Texas, Tennessee, and
Tennessee.
Utah. Yeah, and Utah. And then we're going to be passing it in Oklahoma hopefully soon. Governor's going to sign it into law hopefully any day now. But that will be our 7th state. Alyssa's Law is mass notification in a life-threatening emergency situation. So if it's a medical emergency, which we happen to have 99% of the time in our schools, or an active shooter situation, but we want to empower teachers to be able to press that button, and it's directly linked to law enforcement so they can get on the scene as quickly as possible. We know that time equals life, and the faster we can get help on the scene, that we know that will save lives. And on Valentine's Day 6 years ago, that horrific day, I just kept thinking that EMS was getting to Alyssa. I found it out through a text message that Alyssa was shot. And I just kept thinking in my head that they're taking her to the hospital. And I went with a police officer to the emergency room to one of the hospitals, but unfortunately, Alyssa wasn't there. Alyssa never made it out of the building. She was murdered in that building, which currently is being taken down. I don't know if you know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so the 1,200 building is in the process of being taken down. And we built another building in replace of that 1,200 building at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. So in the last 7 days, the building has been hit and taken down. And I remember it was a 3-story building, and the shooter killed people on the first floor. He didn't kill anybody on the second floor because everybody there on the second floor was able to get out of the line of fire. They got to a safer space, that area you don't see directly from the door. And everybody survived on the second floor. But then there was also lives taken on the 3rd floor.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Alyssa's Law, if possible? What exactly is the proposal, and how does that benefit our kids?
Sure. So we want to see Alyssa's Law pass in every state. So we do have a federal bill called Alyssa's Act, but meanwhile, we're trying to go state by state to pass Alyssa's Law and also connect it with funding. We don't want an unfunded mandate. We want school boards that, as a school board member, right, wanting to make sure that if we pass this law, that it's funded. And basically the essence of Alyssa's Law is just as simple as it's the panic button. It could be a wearable panic button the teacher wears with their ID. It could be an app on their phone that they have. It could be an app on their computer or a hardwire type of panic button. But in essence, as simple as when that button is pushed, it goes to law enforcement directly. And then the real-time crime center, they can pull up the cameras in the school, get eyes on the scene so that they can better direct their SRO, school resource officer, where to go to take down that threat. And then it's mass notification so that all the teachers that have their panic button, they'll get alerted that whether it's a medical emergency or an active shooter situation, so they can more better respond in that emergency.
Yeah, because one of the things I looked into this story and I was reading up onto the Marjory Stoneman Douglas incident. Of course, I probably don't have as much information as you have, but I was able to pull at least from a few different stories of a little bit of the timeline. And as you know, an instance like this, or any kind of emergency for that matter, time saves lives. The time that emergency responders can get in and either nullify or remove the threat, or they can save or get to that person who might be injured, whether it's like a heart attack or whether it's a school shooting or whatever it may be. That time is critical because it can save people's lives, right? So from what I've seen about this and what I've noticed, there was some problems with getting into the building. And this isn't just a new thread. This is kind of a consistent thread. So there were multiple different law enforcement who were trying to communicate through their radios, and they were getting sort of what they call as a dead signal or a busy signal, I guess you could say, and they couldn't communicate with that. Was there a delay that was going on before law enforcement came in and EMS could get in? And what happened there? What do you know about that?
Yeah, so a few things. So one is, you're correct. The radios were like bricks. They didn't work. And then also our camera system, when law enforcement went in there, for whatever reason, the camera system was on like a 20-30 minute delay. So what they were looking at was delayed. So it wasn't real time. So that was a huge problem. And then the other problem that we did have a school resource officer, but so supposedly he didn't know where the sound of gunfire was coming from, and he froze. And he was the only person at the time that had a gun that would have been able to go in and take down the threat. So that delay of action, the delay of somebody responding faster or going to the gunfire, right, going to the threat, was cost 17 lives that horrific day. And if they had the panic button, there was a guy on the golf cart that saw the shooter walk in the school with a gun bag. And if he pushed his panic button, then law enforcement could have immediately got eyes, pulled up the cameras within the school and see that this is some kid with a gun bag, right, that has a gun. And there would have been that time period would have been faster for help to get there, right? There would have been no question of, is there a school shooting? Do I hear gunfire? Where is it coming from? Right? And all of that combined caused the failures that occurred that day, and the response to be so delayed.
So I'm just curious, do you know how long it took for Scott Peterson to did he engage with the shooter at all? Who was
No,
he
he never
did not.
moved from his spot. He didn't engage with the shooter, unfortunately. And we did have Chris Hickson and Andrew Feist go into the building. These were staff members that worked at the school, and unfortunately they didn't have a gun to take down the shooter, but they ran to the threat, and they were heroes. And that's why the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Act puts in this guardian program, which allows there to be guardians in schools where their sole job is, where they haven't gone, to be able to take down.
Okay. So, and the thing is, unfortunately, this is like a repeat, right? Uvalde, you can go back, Columbine. I mean, this is not the first one, but it seems like there's been a lot of good things that have happened from this horrific incident that can point us in the right direction and really make us understand the importance of all the pieces that come together. So, like, I love the idea of Alyssas Act. I think it's a great way. The faster that we can communicate with first responders and let them know what's going on, the sooner we can get there. So instead of having a 10 or 15-minute delay before anyone kind of assesses the situation, if they're there in 2 to 3 minutes, we can save lives, hands down. There's no doubt about it. And that goes for multiple different aspects of this whole plethora of, I guess you could say, layers of safety and layers of defense. Like I like what you said there, because when they build the buildings, there's layers of communication that are supposed to be put inside the building. They're supposed to be monitored on a yearly basis. They're supposed to be checked to make sure that they work. And if they don't, it should be reported. And that's one of the other things I've actually talked about, because the message that we need to send to, the AHJs and people who are enforcing these things, you know what? If we don't have laws on the books, like Alyssas Law and similar communication laws on the books, they need to be added to the books, right? And if they're not, then, I mean, if they are on the books, well, are we enforcing them? And where are we going to get the funding for that? We fund a lot of things in this country. We should be funding our kids' safety.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the other part of the enforcement and compliance is the training aspect. So we want to make sure that we're implementing your panic button in our schools when we're doing our monthly drills and their training. So I can't stress that more enough, that training is so crucially important. In a life-threatening emergency, one's body goes into fight or flight. And they'll either freeze or they'll respond. But going back to their muscle memory from their training will depend how they more effectively respond. So I want to make sure that we're integrating their panic button, Alyssas Law, with their training on their drills.
So how is that linked? So let's just say they have the Alyssas Laws in place, they have a panic button, but if they don't know how to use it, it's not going to be doing them any good, right? So is it all teachers who are able to use the button? Is that how it's going to work? Or
yes, so all teachers can have it. It could be a badge they wear around their neck with their ID. It could be an app on their cell phone that they use. And we want to empower them, right, to be able to push that button. Let's say they need there's a fight going on in their classroom where a kid's vaping and they need like just a staff assist. So on the app, you can push staff assist and you can get help there faster. So the panic button can be used in different modalities. It's not always just active shooter, but
Sure.
the more common day issues that teachers are having, like fights, needing staff assist, or medical emergencies, which happen every day in our schools.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I went to a high school in Long Island, and we had our few rough days there. I mean, there was no shy of fights. Let's just say. I don't want to throw my high school under the bus, so I'm not gonna name it on my podcast here. But let's just say, not on a daily, but on a weekly basis, there were definitely fights all the time, and there were teachers who were getting injured. I mean, to get the staff who were on site in the school to come help them out, it took a while for them to get there. And they're on the school, and they're still not responding quickly, because the teacher at that time, there was no cell phones, there was nothing, because I'm a 90s kid, right? So there was, all there was is the teacher would have to yell out of the classroom, and they would yell to another, like a staff member in the hallway, and hopefully someone's going to hear them, or the teacher would have to jump in and try to break up that fight themselves. Right. And so if it's just little kids, that's okay. But some of these teenagers, they start getting really big really soon. By the time they're 16, 17 years old, they're big and strong, and they can throw some of these teachers around really, really easy. easy. In fact, one of my English teacher, he threw out his back throwing, just trying to break up a fight in high school. And
Yeah.
that's on a minimal scale, right? I so you're saying it has a button for staff assist, and what other features, and like, okay, we got is it like an active shooter button, or is it
Yeah. Active
an
shooter
emergency?
button,
Oh, really?
medical emergency button, fire button, and then, but just going back to the fight things, and I'm a 90s kid too.
Right on, right on.
But now, right, the kids are all using their cell phone and they're videotaping the fight. And so there's other consequences to that, where kids are being harassed and bullied, and it's all on video. And it's a lot. It's a lot different from when we grew up as teenagers. Mm.
Yeah, well, I guess the difference would be is like when there was a fight going on in my school when I was growing up, everyone would stand around, and unfortunately, people would just cheer them on, or they would at least watch, right? So, and rarely would anyone step up to help. I know because I was personally, unfortunately, in a few of them. And then on the flip side, now what they do is they also cheer them on. They just happen to record it and put it online now. But it's funny you bring up cell phones. Everyone's got a cell phone, but what also happens is the cell phone networks get overloaded in an emergency as well. So, for example, we had it was an earthquake we had out here about 10 years ago, and it was in the Diamond Bar region, which is where I was living at the time. And after the earthquake happened, you tried to use your cell to make a call to kind of like let the dispatch know what was going on, or someone got hurt. Couldn't use it for about a half an hour to an hour after the earthquake happened. And it wasn't because the earthquake disrupted the cell phone towers. It was because there was that many people overloading the network. So in the same respect, I'm pretty sure that's what was happening, at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School from the stories I've read. And also, I can't imagine that the cell phones, people trying to call out, I don't know what you've heard, but that could probably also be an issue too. So if you're trying to call out, you have dozens or hundreds of people all doing it at the same time. Those network towers nearby, they also get overloaded, and you can't get out and you can't make phone calls out.
Yeah.
So
No, that could be definitely a problem.
But us 90s kids, we have a different way in how we look at life, I guess, right? Every moment is precious, and every incident that like that you make a difference on makes an impact. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So California has not passed Alyssa's law yet, have they?
Not yet, but hopefully soon.
That
Yeah.
would be a nice one to get. I mean, it is the largest state. Well, yeah, other than as far as populous state-wise, the most populous state in the union. So we got to
Yeah.
get them on board, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely trying. So on our website, makeourschoolsafe.org, we have an Alyssas Law tab, which is pretty cool. You could click on that. All the states will pull up where we've passed Alyssas Law or we're in progress and trying to pass Alyssas Law. But what's also great about that, there's a link to the bill because every state kind of does it like the language a little bit differently. But you could click on the bill language to see how the language speaks in the bill. So I just wanted to mention that at makeourschoolsafe.org.
So what would be your goal then, with to get every state to pass it, or would you want a national law, or do you think it's probably better on a state by state level?
I mean, I think if it's going to be funded properly at the national level, that would be wonderful. I would love to see Alyssa's Law, panic buttons in schools, mass notification as a standard level school safety protection. We have standards for everything, standards for fires, fire safety, but we need to start implementing certain standards in our schools. We have standards for buildings, building codes, and all that. But I would love to see more standards like panic buttons as a standard level of school safety protection, because we just know that this is a no-brainer that in these life-threatening emergencies, we need to get help there as quickly as possible. And we can't, what I want people to learn from my tragedy and from the death of Alyssa and 16 others is that there was a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of things that went wrong leading up to the tragedy and the day of the tragedy. But if a tragedy hasn't happened already by you, you need to learn from our mistakes and then also learn from the good school safety bills that Florida has passed and put into law and create those standards for safety at your school and your state. But don't be complacent. Don't live in a little bubble like we did. We lived in the Parkland bubble. We never thought it would happen here. It's a very affluent community. And I never thought my 14-year-old daughter Alyssa would be murdered in her English classroom. So please learn from our lessons and do something. Take action. Don't sit there complacent. Don't just think your kid's school is safe. Be involved, be engaged, know what those school safety measures are. Talk to your principal, go to your school board meetings and have a voice and take action and make a change. And one of the most important things you can also do is make sure that you vote. Make sure you vote the right people into those elected positions, because especially at the local level, they're the ones that are making the difference, making the impact, and making differences in your child's education at their school.
That's some great comments right there. I can't agree enough. If people wanted to help your nonprofit, could they donate some funds to it? And is there a way they can do that?
Yeah, so absolutely. Go to makeourschoolsafe.org. We have a donation link. We have a lot of actionable things that you do. Follow us on social media. Sign up for our emails that we send out every week. You can volunteer. One thing we didn't talk about is the other part besides Alyssas Law is that we focus on our Make Our School Safe clubs in high schools, because we believe that students help to create a culture of safety within their school. So it's a club that your student can start. We have a link on our website that you could click on and you can get more information if you want to start a Make Our School Safe club, or a MOS club, we call it, at your school. We would love for you to join our safety movement and just be involved, be engaged. And we definitely would love to have you check out makeourschoolsafe.org.
I think that's fantastic. So, other than my 18-year-old daughter, I have 3 other children. So, my 18-year-old daughter, she just graduated high school and she just finished her first year at college as well. Now, I have 3 other boys, and 16, 13, and 10. Yes, I have quite the passion for this topic, and I'm a big proponent for safe schools, because I've always said the same thing. It's like, you never know when it's going to happen or where it could happen. And we have a tendency, like you're saying, to kind of live in a bubble where our school feels unbelievably safe. We know everyone. We're friends with everybody. It's a small school, and you have good relationships with the teachers and the principal, but that doesn't mean there's not a person who's got issues, right? That's either mental problems or whatever the issues may be, or vendetta problems. Who knows what the issue may be? Maybe they failed a class and something snaps in their brain, and they either steal a weapon or somehow buy a weapon illegally, or who knows, however they get it, but they get it. And so if we can do anything to promote mental awareness, like you're saying, or ways that you can within the community of the school, I love that too, because if the kids can be part of the solution, they don't even know that they can be. Right?
Yeah.
Because if they can see something or they're concerned about something, a lot of times these people, they leak information. So they tell people about what they're thinking of doing or what they might do. And sometimes they say it either online, they'll say it in group chats. And then unfortunately people will be like, well, that's just John, right? John's just like that. Right? I've actually read stories about this where other incidences have happened, and they brought this up where they were like, he's just that way. No,
Yeah.
that's not true. He's not just that way. When you bring up like, oh, you know what? I'd really like to get back at my teacher. I'd love to pull a bullet in her head or something like that. That's not just John. That's behavior and people saying things that are reflecting what perhaps could be some of their actions. And so if we can develop a safer culture in schools to be aware about little things like that, we might be able to stop some of this stuff from happening just by being more aware, like you're saying.
Right. We can't ignore the warning signs.
Yes.
Because those warning signs are out there, whether it's verbally something a kid says or something they write, or they're killing animals. I mean, these are clear signals that this kid has issues and they need to get help. There needs to be a behavioral threat assessment done on the child, a safety plan enacted. But at the end of the day, we need to create these layers of safety protection. We need to make it hard for the person that's wanting to come in and do harm to penetrate the system, penetrate the school, and get to our kids. So that means fencing, locking doors, parents having to buzz in and show ID, making sure IDs are checked. Why are you here? Making it more difficult for that threat to get into the school. And then also, simply that doors to classrooms need to be locked. You need to lock those doors and then be able to respond in an active shooter situation or medical emergency, and using their panic button and training to be able to know what to do in that emergency situation.
I do love the training part, like you're talking about right there. I think that's fantastic because you can have all the tools in the world, but if we don't know how to use them, then we're at a big disadvantage and it just hurts us. Well, you can have the panic system in place, but if they don't know how to use it or they're not prepared to use it or they're not trained to use it, well, yeah, we need to have a program that rolls out that shows people how to do that. And we need to have multiple layers, like you're talking about, layers on the communication side where, well, once the first responders get there, they got to be able to communicate in and out. They need to, it's a must, and it needs to be monitored. Well, okay, we need to have a panic system set up for all teachers and staff to be able to notify first responders that this is going on, and perhaps other people inside the building. Is the system supposed to notify other staff members that, like, if I hit panic, then the principal knows that we've got a
Not
problem?
only notifying the staff in the school, it's also can notify the superintendent of the school district. It can notify the chief of police for the school district, and whoever needs to know in an emergency situation.
So however it's applicable, it notifies it.
Right.
So what has been the outcome where Alyssas Law has been passed? Has it been, do you have any stories about where it's been effective and it's done good?
Yeah, so we do have testimonials on our website. Predominantly, it's been used so far in medical emergencies, and it's absolutely already has saved lives in these medical emergencies where they're able to. One of the stories is there was a student who had a cardiac arrest, and when that panic button was pushed, another teacher in the school ran and got the AED and was able to use the AED on the student even before EMS was able to even get there. So that communication, that response time was so much faster, and they end up saving that girl's life.
Wow, that's fantastic. See, that's a simple story like that. It's not necessarily always the super extreme stories, right? But the simple story like that, and that child could have had cardiac arrest. It could have been, caused from multiple different things, multiple different reasons. Maybe they overexerted themselves during lunch, or maybe they have a predisposition to it. Maybe it's hereditary. Who knows? But that's a fantastic story right there, and I'm sure there's probably dozens others already since they've already been passed. Since what? Well, I guess the incident happened in 2018, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know when states started passing the laws. It probably took several years to actually get Florida to pass. Was it 2020 Florida passed?
It was 2020. New Jersey was the first day in 2019.
Is that where you're originally from, New Jersey?
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
All right. That was a swag, by the way. We call that a scientific wild guess. I could tell by
You tell the
mannerisms
Jersey in
and
me.
what you said. Yeah, I don't know. I just took a wild guess. New Jersey also passed first, and I was like, yeah, your husband's from Staten Island.
Wait, it's all
Gotta
coming
put two
together.
things together, right? Yeah, it's
Mhm.
all coming. Now it all makes sense. And then you move down to the sunny state, right?
Yes, yes.
Get some warmth. Get some warmth.
But one thing I wanted to mention is that, the AI technology, the artificial intelligence that we have now, they're putting it into the camera system to be able to have weapons detection. So if somebody pulls out a gun, the AI technology is detecting that gun, boxing it, and then basically sending an Alyssa's alert to law enforcement to notify them that somebody has a gun on campus. But that AI technology in the cameras is detecting that.
That's fantastic. I've also heard about other tech out there that indicates if there's a gunshot, that the camera will be able to determine if it hears a gunshot, the camera will be able to determine where that was, and also send a notification as to where the gunshot came from.
Right, right.
So that would be kind of cool as well. Just knowing, because these schools can be massive. Like you're saying, I don't know how big your daughter's high school was, but you said it was one of the largest, correct?
Yeah, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. It's like a mini college campus, basically. And what's great about it is say if I push Alyssa's alert room 1216, law enforcement could pull up the cameras in the area, and then they get the geo coordinates to be able to figure out, that this is where the area is, so that they can better tell their school resource officer where to go. And they pull up the camera so they can visually see what's going on.
Wow, that's great. So then they could also make a quick assessment as to, well, all right, maybe they hit the wrong button and it's just a fight or whatever. They can assess it as quick as possible and then send the right kind of response to the situation, so they can determine if it's we're at a level up here, right? This is not just a scuffle. This is a guy
Right.
with a weapon. This is and then they can assess that. Well, that means we need to go in right away, and we
Right.
can't sit around outside,
Exactly.
picking our nose, waiting for some other team to show up, right?
Yep.
Which
It's
has
go
happened multiple
time,
times too.
right? Go
Yep,
time.
it's go time.
Get in there.
Well, it's go time for everyone. Lori, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a fabulous, fabulous experience to discuss with you. And I do think it's going to have a big impact upon our audience and upon others who are listening. I appreciate your time today. On our way out, is there any other thing you want to tell the audience here?
Every time that panic button is pushed, I know that Alyssa is saving lives, and we will continue to honor Alyssa through our nonprofit, Make Our Schools Safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Desk Talk by Gamma, keeping you connected and protected.